This is Rabbi Klein from the Greater Miami Jewish Federation. I was going to speak this week about Parshat Bamidbar and Shavuot, but because of the events in Israel, I think we really need to focus on what's going on. As we speak, there are missiles that are falling upon our Israeli brethren, and we must keep our hearts with them. My role, however, is a rabbi, and there are more than enough pundits to talk about the politics here. This battle, like many battles, is beginning with Jerusalem. And there are many briefings that are going on. And I'd like to ask, though, what is the spiritual meaning of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, and examine with you today a fascinating midrash that can give us some context in terms of the spiritual meaning of some of these battles. In essence, the word Yerushalayim is a dual word, like Yadayim means two hands, Einayim, two eyes. Yerushalayim is two. It's not Yerushalayim. In essence, there are two Jerusalems. The first Jerusalem is a very real place. It's the center of a power struggle right now. This is the Jerusalem that we hear about in the news, the physical Jerusalem. However, there is another type of Jerusalem, and this place, its location is in the middle of the human heart and what it means for various people in the world. This heavenly Jerusalem, or spiritual Jerusalem, is the product of imagination over the course of millennia, not just for Jews, but for all people of faith. Let's explore, I would like to share with you today, a beautiful midrash which points to some of these tensions. Why is the city of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, called Yerushalayim? The midrash says it's a combination of two words, yireh, he will see, and the word shalem, or shalom, peace or wholeness. Now, the center of Jerusalem, of course, is the Temple Mount. And that's the beginning of this conflict this week. However, it also has another significance. The Temple Mount is also Har HaMoriah, and this is the place of the binding of Isaac, of Akedat Yitzchak. And our midrash begins here. And Abraham called that place Hashem Yireh, Adonai Yireh, God will see. And the midrash says the following. Rabbi Yochanan said, Abraham said to God, at the moment that you told me to take my son, my only son Isaac, and offer him on an altar to you, God, Abraham said, only earlier you said to me that all of my progeny, all my hope is on this child Isaac. Ki biyitzchak yikrei lecha zera. Through Isaac, my progeny will be fulfilled. And now you're going to ask me to take my son, my only son, and to give him as a sacrifice? Yet I did it. And the Midrash says, I conquered my mercy to do your will, God, even though I didn't understand it. And Abraham, if you know, is the paradigm in rabbinic thought of chesed le'Abraham, kindness. So Abraham had to overcome his own sense of kindness to do this really terrifying act. And yet the rabbis see this as an heroic act of dedication to God. While we're not going to be teaching now the Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac here, the rabbis are calling to our attention to the fact that to be a Jew means to make sacrifices, and sometimes even the ultimate sacrifice. And I think we all as Jews can understand this. On Yom HaZikaron, on Memorial Day recently, we speak about some of these sacrifices of people that were ready to give their lives for the Jewish people and Jewish destiny. Indeed, the cost of being Jewish has historically always been quite high. So then Abraham argues, I was able to make this highest act of dedication to you. So Abraham says to God, may it be your will, God, that at the hour where your son, the sons of Isaac, the future generations, come to do sins and bad deeds, that this very binding of Isaac will be remembered, and may you be filled with mercy towards them. So Abraham calls a place Hashem Yireh, God will see, meaning God will be reminded of our ongoing dedication, and therefore God will have mercy upon us. In other words, in a future generation when we're not living up to our potential as a godly people, God should see this dedication of Abraham and Isaac and remember our special relationship, the dedication and the investment that we've had. Remember all our sacrifices. This part of the name Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, focuses on our special relationship between God and the Jewish people. Just like Abraham and Isaac, who made great sacrifices for God, so have we over millennia. No, we are not colonizers. We are not outsiders. Our history in the land of Israel, in Christian Europe, in Muslim worlds, shows that we have never turned away from our commitment to God. We deserve to be there. Thus, Abraham, who is the father of the Jewish people, is responsible for the name of Yerushalayim. But it's not just about us, because there's another part of this name, of Yerushalayim. Yes, it's about Yireh, but it's also about Shalem. Who gave the name Shalem to the word Yerushalayim? The second part comes from an unlikely source and a person who's not Jewish at all. Let me refer you to the story of the battle of the 4 and 5 kings in the book of Genesis. Abraham there also plays a major role and basically saves Sodom, even if they're undeserving, and also saves his nephew Lot. Now, following this battle, there's a mysterious king that comes to give Abraham tribute. His name is Melchizedek Melech Shalem, the righteous king, the king of Shalem. Shalem in the book of Psalms is one of the names of Yerushalayim. So there's this mysterious king who's called the righteous king, and he comes to give tribute to Abraham. He blesses Abraham in the name of the God of the Most High, the one that created heaven and earth. Now, if you doubt that this is a good man, the Torah tells me not only was he a righteous king, but he was a Kohen El Elyon. He was a priest in this place, a priest to the God of the Most High. And he brings to Abraham tributes of wine and bread. But the rabbis intimate in the Midrashim that he is actually instructing Abraham on how to do proper sacrifice to God. In another explanation, when he gives Abraham wine and bread, in fact, these are just metaphors for the wisdom of the Torah. So this non-Jewish king is either transmitting to Abraham the secrets of the worship on the Temple Mount or the secrets of the Torah themselves. Either way, this Melchizedek in rabbinic imagination is the steward of a place that is later going to be called the Temple Mount, and he is not Jewish. Now, this Melchizedek, this mysterious man, this mysterious priest, is worshiping not a particularistic God. He's actually worshiping the high God, Koneh Shemayim Va'aretz, the God that created all of us, the God that created humanity. Now, who is this mysterious man? So the rabbis identify him with none other than Shem. Shem, as you remember, is the firstborn of Noah. Shem in rabbinic thought also actually created a yeshiva where actually Jacob learned. What was the Torah and who was studying there? So Shem is a person that came from Noah. Noah was the Ish Tzaddik, the righteous man, and his family saved humanity from the flood. After the flood, people punished because they forgot who they were as human beings, except for Noah. So Shem preserved the wisdom of his father, and 10 generations later, Abraham would descend from him. Perhaps the Torah that was being learned at Yeshivat Shem Ba'eber, at this yeshiva of Shem, was the universal wisdom of humanity that all people can access. In essence, we have Shem as the priest of a temple on the Temple Mount, bestowing gifts and blessings to Abraham. So there's another name, Shalem, which comes from this non-Jewish priest on the Temple Mount. The Midrash continues, God has to consider both of these names. If I only call it Yireh, if I only call it the name that Abraham gave it, Shem is going to be offended. Jerusalem has universal dimensions. It belonged to Shem also first. If I call it Shalem, however, if I only call it by Shalem, Abraham is going to be offended. What of Isaac and the Jewish people's sacrifices? In the end, God calls it Yerushalayim, Yireh Shalem. So according to our rabbis, there's this tension. There are two Jerusalems. Even if it's in the hands of the Jewish people, it is not only for the Jewish people. Jerusalem is a real place, but is also an aspiration for all people in all times. Jerusalem resides in the hearts of those looking towards a time when people ultimately will come to Jerusalem to join in prayer to the Creator of all of us. Listen to the words of Isaiah. Valhu amim rabim, v'amru lechu v'na'aleh el har Adonai, el beit Elohei Yaakov, v'yorenu midrachav v'nelchel baruchotav, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. And many people, not just Jews, will go and say, come, we're going to go to the mount of God, to the house of God of Jacob, that he may instruct us in his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For instruction shall come forth from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. In a very real way, Jerusalem belongs to no one but God, and the Jewish people do not own Jerusalem. They are the stewards of Jerusalem. They are the Kohanim. They are the priests of Jerusalem. And that is a tall order which resides in the Messianic ideal. Because Jerusalem is far more than a physical locale. Jerusalem embodies the dreams and ideals not only of Jewish people, both past and present, but the dreams of all humanity. Jerusalem is an aspirational vision that in a very real way resides outside of history, deeply embedded in religious consciousness. Jews from time immemorial have anchored their collective dreams to this place. So then to defend Jerusalem is not only to defend a place. Yes, we need to do that. But it's also to commit to nurture an aspirational vision of holiness, kindness, justice, and humanity for everyone. Of course, Jewish history teaches us we must defend ourselves and our very real rights of existence. And on one level, this is what it means to defend Yerushalayim and what's going on right now. That's what's it about. We need to defend ourselves. But we can also never forget why we must defend it. We do not own Yerushalayim. We possess Yerushalayim and are stewards of its vision. In conclusion, I'd like to end with a bracha that's implicit in the name that we just taught. Yerushalayim Yireh Shalom. He, God, will see peace. May we come to a time that when God looks at Yerushalayim, God sees not a place of strife, but a place of its true nature, a place of peace. Wishing all of you Shabbat Shalom.